It is going to be without the cat cam. Dimitri's not here today. In the bottom right of Oceanborn, we do have Team Liquid's Clem playing on his Korean account, so that's why he's not Mlem Clem. And in the top left, we do have Dark, who is on Talon Esports for the Esports World Cup. And I think they're pretty happy. You know, he was already a good pick before. I think he started to gain a lot more traction and actually won the GSL and gave that emotional speech. At the very least, even if he doesn't do well at EWC, which I think he will. I hope he will. Then maybe they've still gotten some good publicity out of that. Obviously, Team Liquid having Clem for a very long time. One of the best pickups back in 2020. It was right before the pandemic hit. It was all tizzy because the Team Liquid had announced they were going to sign, I believe, 2 new players. And that ended up being Clem and Harsum at the time. If I remember correctly. Harsum pretty much quickly went over the Shopify Rebellion, though, once that got formed. Anyways, we are in the Korean StarCraft League, so that is why Clem is playing on his Korean accounts, because I believe this is a region preference. So anyone can play, as evidence here, but the time is favorable to Koreans, and then the server is favorable to Koreans as well. So Clem is playing from France to Korean server. Not going to be the best ping for him, and we do know that TvZ is a lot about those fine actions for the Terran player, particularly a guy like Clem, who really does love to show off his multitasking and his micro, and purely plays bio. Not that mech is really so much of a thing nowadays anyway in this matchup, but, you know, you might see a Gumiho try it out. You might even occasionally see, like, a Cure, maybe. But you're not really going to see Clem ever do it. I think even Maru's brought it out every once in a while. You know, anytime some of these top Terrans bring out mech, there's always this, like, oh, is it back? Is it happening? Is it happening? And then it doesn't happen, so. But, you know, Clem, regardless of it, unless the meta actually was dominated by mech, like, maybe like last time that happened was Heart of the Swarm, I think. Maybe Clem would do it, but that's a real question mark. But usually, you know, back when it was kind of viable to say, like, either one, you would say, like, hey, server issues, maybe go for the mech. You don't have that quick action burst that you have with, you know, splitting Marines, microing the Widow Mines, and whatever. So, not something we're going to see here. I feel like Dark would have to either be really uncomfortable with Ling Baneling to not use it, or just, yeah, he doesn't believe that it's actually going to give him any favors. But I feel like if you're also on the other side where the ping is favorable to you, the save in the SCU is great. Oh no, he's not going to be saved though. No! Oh, so much effort wasted. Oh well. Anyway, that you would try and take advantage of maybe your opponent not having the best reaction time. So you would go Ling Baneling, which has the capacity for those run-bys very, very consistently. That can just kind of overwhelm if your opponent is clearly not ready to go. You press the button to go, and they might be a little delayed when it comes to, again, microing all the things they need to micro. So even though Dark is definitely one of the Zerg players who can be A, cheesier, and B, more of a Roach player, I don't know if this is actually the best of 5 that you choose to do that all the time. Particularly, I guess, maybe not really because of the server, but because more so Clem has shown that he understands how to tackle Roach games now. It used to be his weakness, particularly when it was up against Dark. Now that's really a thing of the past, and it's just a good old battle of build order counters, you know, not counters, but just trying to take advantage of the things that you can find out. So, for instance, Dark does probably know that Clem likes 3CC, but then Clem knows that Dark knows that he knows that he knows, so on and so forth. And actually, in a rare move for Clem, seriously, guys, this is noteworthy, not 3CCing. It doesn't happen very often, honestly, especially because I think it really has become so defendable. And that's just what happens in RTS, I guess, in any game, right? Like, it's just something that, over time, you learn to defend better, and it's up to the aggressor to find something new that actually hits a good timing. But Clem really changing things up. you know, maybe was worried about being vulnerable to someone trying to take advantage of his reputation for 3CC, wants to try and mix things up. Also, a good time to start trying to mix up your styles, because this is leading to the Esports World Cup. Whenever you see a player playing who's going to be at the EWC, this is really awkward, guys, then you're probably gonna, you know, see them actually purposefully training for the Esports World Cup, not necessarily thinking, yeah, I'm gonna win this tournament, like, oh, all eyes are on EWC. But anyways, I thought that Clem was in a lot of trouble because this command center went down, but apparently this game was going to end fast one way or the other, and it ended with Clem's victory. All the lings used to get that cancel were unavailable back at home, and all of the queens stacked together were completely out of position. And a canceled third CC does not match up against what could have easily been 20 drones killed. Wow, did not expect that. This was the first game of the series. I thought I could kind of prep a little bit of the storylines, and instead the game ended at 5.5 minutes. Not common for a TvZ. But that's how we're going to start this off. Okay, Clem, up 1-0. So into game number 2 on Alcyone. Bottom left, Clem. Top right, Dark. Yeah, Clem gets those Hellions into the main base while Dark's Lings are busy elsewhere. And while that isn't necessarily a death sentence for the Zerg player, it, you know, would depend entirely on the queens actually being in position to help at least a little bit. You know, maybe if they could even have been there to body block the main ramp, it wouldn't have been nearly a disaster, right? Natural goes down, maybe not. 20 drones, maybe more like 10, and that's something that maybe you could live with. If you could have guaranteed the Hellions only would have killed 10 drones before either dying or leaving, then maybe the canceled third CC would kind of be worth it. I mean, a canceled CC is a decent chunk of change, but it also is just all that time lost in building the third CC that you have to restart. It was about like 40% down, I want to say. It is hard to call. It is because, you know, Dark also made that many lings as well, which already had sunk into his drone count. But I think that's the type of game where you're like, I'm not in a great space, but I could probably play this out. But with the Hellions having free reign over the main and potentially able to go back into the natural, just, yeah, tap out. Let that one go, I suppose. That is Oceanborn now out of the map, and I'm not sure who actually got to choose it first. It wouldn't surprise me, however, that this is a Dark choosing first, Clem choosing second. Oceanborn nice and big, very typical map. Zerg players can play to their strengths on it. Alcyone, while maybe having some features that are nice for Zerg, sure, we know that the current problem right now is the 8 racks on this map. It takes advantage of some of the positioning and the kind of straightforward attack line that you can make from your own third to their third/fourth. So it's, you know, it's a big enough map, but it really has that one linear path because the right side is entirely cut off by the minerals and the rocks, and then the left side is just too far to go. If you try and, you know, set up a ling run by as they try and 8 racks you, it's going to take 20 seconds to get over there, and they're going to have time to reinforce. So, I mean, there's, I'm sure, plenty of reasons why. It's also just the 8 racks being, I guess, once again popular, but it really is a troublesome build. I have not seen it lose. This is not an ironic statement. I'm not trying to copy the 2-3 racks meme, but I have not seen it lose in a while, honestly. A good Terran against a good Zerg, even if that Terran is actually even an underdog, like Epic versus Scarlet last month. 8 racks works. It's pretty good. So I gotta assume that's what Clem's going to do. And Clem might even try and take advantage of this 1-0 lead to even, you know, go back to the 3CC, figure he can get away with that, and really get set up strong into the 8 racks a bit later on. I'd be wrong about that, though, because he does have 2 gases, and that's the first indication it's not a 3CC. It's once again going to be 2 bases, 1-1-1. So perhaps really choosing to make this best of 5 the experiment. No doubt Dark's going to be one of the contenders up against Clem in the EWC. Not that, you know, anyone's not a contender, basically, but I mean, you're talking about the potentials for top 4. Both these guys are there, for sure, if they're having a good week. And either this is trying to experiment to figure out what works best against a Zerg player or against Dark in particular, or it's hiding strategies from Dark. Now, I you know, I feel like that matters a little more when you're I don't know, when you're not Clem, basically. Because Clem, like, you know, his strength still comes from a 3cc solid build in TvZ. Like, he's been doing it for 3 years. And maybe not exactly 3 years, but he's been doing it for a long time. And he's won with it. So, you know, the fact that there's maybe some vulnerabilities to the build doesn't seem to matter as far as his capacity to win with it, as long as he's playing his A game. But for whatever reason, he's changing things up here. And I mean, I guess the other thing is that ping, which, yeah, his clan is 430 MS. I don't think that would affect 2-3 versus 3cc, right? That doesn't make sense. But we do have a Liberator popping out this time around, so a little bit of a change-up compared to last game, which was Banshees, and those Banshees actually were effective as well. I forgot to mention, they did seem like they drew the Queens to the right, so that the Hellions could go to the left, and that's why Dark Queens were, like, hurrying their butts over in a crowd, because I think they had been successfully distracted. So a bit of a change up here from Clem. Obviously, still going to be going into Bio with that stim well on the way. 3rd CC on the front lines. He did kill the Overlord with a lifted barracks, but I don't think they really delayed any timing there. And that does mean that Dark technically... No, he actually still saw 2 supply depots at the front. So he should know that it is, once again, a 2-base build. Which means anything from the starport's going to be coming out a little bit quicker. And the Liberator is already here, but the Spore Crawlers are already also here. Maybe initially placed in an anti-Banshee zone, but then moved to anti-Liberator, whichever it is.
Arming raid defenses.
Thank you, Roddy, for the raid. But he has the defense. He's looking strong so far, as the Hellions have also been pushed away. The Queens this time around in the right place at the right time, and immediately getting back to creep spread after they pushed them away. Clem only dedicating to the Liberator, wasn't expecting big things from it, but the fact is that it's still alive, and it can come back later. He's definitely been known for his Liberator micro in the past, so you have to be really on top of this. But then onwards to the next normal, I suppose, mid-game stage TvZ. It is when you compare this build to, for instance, the 3cc double engineering bay, then barracks and starport. Like, it's missing some of the strength all coming together at, well, like 7 or 8 minutes after a couple of drops. This is more middle of the road, I guess. Yeah, is the best way to put it. More middle of the road. So it's not that it's bad, but you haven't taken any risk for any amount of reward. You've really played some of the most typical Terran you can, which is actually kind of old school at this point, particularly for a Clem. I know some of the other Terrans do continuously mix it up, 2, 3C, different builds from that as well. But anyway, back to my original point, the 8 racks map. Feel like we're still going to see that. It's currently 4th and 5th barracks on the way, but I feel like it's going to happen. Liberator actually chosen to stay behind to defend against Ling run-bys. Interesting choice here. Now Clem going to be able to focus entirely on the push to the front. He's already got 2 tanks. That factory's actually been working fairly quickly, so that is kind of powerful. 1 queen already getting shot down. The whole of the transfuse actually on these queens. A lot more creep tumors were placed down now that we have so much more of the map that needs creep tumors after you break through the choke. The tanks are going to be overwhelmed. And it's a question of how much they get before they're overwhelmed. The answer? Not that much. Not the most impressive tanks, because, you know, sometimes there's banelings involved in the defense. And the Zerg player isn't as careful with them as they should be. So, 20 Banelings get shot down by 2 tank blasts. That's already pretty effective for the 2 tanks. That was pure Ling Queen. Now, that was so many Zerg units because there was not a lot of drones on the side of Dark. 63 drones took care of that 2 tank push, then goes back hard into droning. Very appropriate response by the looks of things. Clem's follow-up's not going to have the same bites, not for a little while he continues to build up his factory units. By the way, not going to be an 8 racks this game. 2nd factory and 4th CC on the way. This is honestly one of the first times I've not seen an 8 racks in Alcyone in this matchup in the past 2 or 3 months. It's very popular and very good, but Clem not going to go for it. All right, then. I would actually go as far to say now I'm confident that Clem is just mixing things up to keep his real power level hidden. He's avoiding Dark Scouter currently, all right? I really feel strongly with this map still being in the map pool for UWC that if these two played against each other, there'd be an attempt at 8 racks with all the appropriate, scouting and defenses necessary against a guy who can cheese you and can be aggressive, but still. But still. A little awkward right there. Dark actually being off of creep with still slow banelings. It did finish up, but Marines, hello? Oh no! Actually, a surprising number of Marines lived. that the banelings didn't actually get the last final shot. But it was because of a distraction. That could have been way better for Clem. I think he could have saved that tank that died, as well as a lot of medevac energy, I guess. But he was distracted. 7 SCVs do go down, maybe some reinforcements as well. Not too bad. That actually could have been much, much worse, because those Marines really should have died. One more baneling would have killed all of these Marines. Still, gives enough time for the reinforcements to come in. Lings and Hydras able to do the trick now that the armies are just completely imbalanced. Dark's army getting here, obviously, on the front lines for Clem's reinforcements, which were also busy. Now there's another army ready to go. Clem might continue the pressure. 2-2 going to finish up for Clem ahead of his opponents, but not by that much. If he had been able to kind of stick to this push, then that might have been an issue, the upgrade difference. But having to restart, I think the upgrades will be evened out. Still got that hatchery, though, so Dark kind of uncomfortably on 4 bases, 77 drones, I guess. Not too many gases, actually. No, he actually just, 6 gases, but barely saturating all of the minerals right now. Eventually, I was going to say, minerals will start to run out, and he does need a 5th base. Also got to make sure you have a macro hatchery, if you're going to not have that many hatcheries on the field. Which, fortunately, Dark is on top of. Not that I really have to mention it, but Dark sometimes doesn't have the best mechanics. Sometimes you can very obviously in a game tell that he is supply blocked, or that he has clearly run out of larva. But not this game. He is on top of things, taking a 5th base and a 6th base over to the right side, mining out all the minerals as well. And it looks like that is now the new plan for Dark. Expand over to the right side, this way that Clem can't really attack from his defensive planetary as well, which kind of helps out. It's a large map that gets larger the more that main attack through that third to third situation can't happen. The more this creep spread, the more that the Zerg has a lot of preemptive notice and can get those rounds. And they're obviously also maxed out, Maybe you're not pushing through the middle over and over and over again. But then you're kind of out of options. Because, again, that right side covered by gold and rocks, not the easiest push path. You're going to go up the middle, and then you're going to try and get that gold base harassed. But this one should remain safe for a while. And then, obviously, the Zerg player is going to stop you from trying to actually get that gold base. Which, so far, Dark has managed to push the army back. This is an overextension on the left side, however, because Clem was able to rejoin the forces. But, I was going to say, Dark was going to rejoin his forces too, but he is the one now down about 20 supply. Upgrades have evened up here, but the Hydras without any. A lot of bio through here. That is a lot of medevacs as well, healing up a lot of this army. Where are the banelings? Some of them finishing up right now. Without that splash damage, it could be a contest of sustained, and bio medevac's pretty good at that. That is going to be too much, especially going back on a creep. All of the splash also taken out. A lot of the Widow Mines left behind, where Clem had actually, I think, planned on doing more of a siege through the middle. So perhaps if those Widow Mines were all placed there as they would if that was the initial plan, that actually might have been a good time for Clem, who still holds on to a supply lead, about 30 in the army supply almost. Dark actually realizing he's in a bit of trouble. His evenly upgraded layer army just isn't that impressive. Bio with medevacs is pretty freaking good, and that 3-3 timer is probably ticking down. Bio gonna have to split. It is a little bit off creep. Marauders appropriately tanking on the front lines. This time, Widow Mines are placed in a retreat path. Nothing actually helping, however, as long as those Marines are on the front line, and Banelings do get the connection. A little bit of friendly fire from the Widow Mine as well, and suddenly the entire Terran army has disappeared. Clem going way too far forward with a ball of Marines, just asking to be hit by a couple of Banelings. And once again, some of his army, all that splash, not really being involved. These are just some of the things that, are making imperfect scenarios for the Terran, giving Dark a chance to come back from the deficit. Now he's also got Spellcasters getting on top of the Medevacs. Friendly fire once again hitting some of them, putting him into the orange. I would go ahead and suggest actually repairing those since he has to retreat anyway. It seems like the relentless onslaught has actually not been so relentless. Stopped at the midpoint for the most part, and then now fully retreating. Of course, behind this, Clem was no slouch on his macro. 5th base planetary is done. 3-3 has finished up. Extra command centers already being formed. Liberator's still helping out that 3rd CC, I guess. Dark hasn't really tried to run by since the first one that he did. First and only one. But he has been doing a good job defending. He's been able to keep all 6 bases, including that gold, mining. And obviously, the more you can get that mining, the faster it mines out. And then you don't have to worry about protecting it. As long as you continue expanding, I guess. Other great fungal on top of the Medivacs. That one was particularly brutal. They were still weak from earlier on, and now the Hydras got involved too. We're down to just 3 Medivacs on the field, one of which, well, yep, was going for harassment and just got shot down. Only grabbing 4 drones with the trade there, not so good. And even though Clem's supply looks fine, it actually looks really sketch. It's like, where is the supply? Widowmines in the field. Once again, not all that helpful, but hey, look at this, actually. Dark having to retreat back to more reinforcements, losing some of those spellcasters. They're just a little too slow. And Clem does choose appropriately to give a little bit of a chase there. Really hard call, I would say, as a Terran player. Could have easily been the other way around. Dark reinforcing a little bit faster and having more banelings that he had like F2'd from somewhere, and then suddenly Clem's chase is a really bad idea. But fortunately, that was a good call, so he got all the spellcasters. Dark is a little low in that gas, despite being on a pretty good economy for most of this game. I mean, he did stop early for that 2 tank push, but then added on an appropriate amount, I guess. Like, it's the gas that is the problem. And he did skip the 4th base gases, still has actually got his 5th base gases, but haven't actually saturated them, and I think that's actually the problem. Yeah, finally Dark able to take a moment and realize that is indeed the problem. He needs more gas. I mean, he did just make 11 lurkers, so to be clear, he had enough to make a good army, but you do want to have that safety bank as a Zerg player. And currently not having that in the gas. So once again, Medivacs dangerously low on health, able to escape. We do need to consider the Medivac count. 6 Medivacs, okay, that's decent. Getting them all on the front line, however. Was not in position to stop the Lurkers from grabbing this planetary, however. Now, the Lurkers might die or might not grab the planetary at all. Oh, no! Okay, well, you're supposed to grab the planetary. And then maybe a few more bodies once the Lurkers redirected their shots, but that was actually terrible. They just failed completely. Ling Runby gonna have to make up for all of that. 13 SCVs have gone down. A lot of chaos as well. These are 3 2-lings, no adrenal glands. Probably would have gotten that when he made those 11 Lurkers, but then again, didn't have that gas. So, not the most effective Ling Runby. If they had adrenal glands, I can imagine more like 24, 30 SCVs even going down. Actually, I think the problem was that there's just none in the main and the natural. But then barracks and reactors and supply depots probably would have went down to cracklings. Not to be there. So overall, Clem defending his 4th base planetary, or 5th actually, defending his production, and for the most part defending his SCVs. I think he may have been building some during that time as well, because he's still at 77. Unless he was at 90, I mean, which maybe he was, I didn't look, but that's a better economy than the Zerg player, who not only is only at 72 drones, just got a couple of more after losing 6, but then also is starting to once again worry about that next hatchery. It's all well and good that he successfully defended the 6 bases that he got, because that gold can be questionable, but then the gold does run out. So yeah, you don't have to defend it anymore, but you also need minerals. So as long as you continue expanding, which is either over here at the 3 o'clock or maybe back at his original attempted 5th, which was taken down by Clem. Then he kind of evacuated that left side. Yep, he's going to try and take the left. That'd be a good time to double expand. Not quite rich enough to do so. 9 lurkers being made instead with that cash. We got +3 missile on the way as well for the Hydras and the lurkers. I mean, upgrades are good. They are good. But they don't really, they don't really matter when it comes to ghosts. So, it's not like that +3 is going to change whether or not the ghost dies before it snipes, generally. It either is dead or isn't. And that's what I'm worried about, basically. I'm worried about Dark once again throwing his lurkers up against something and then ghosts responding like they did. I doubt it'll be as amazing as that defense at the 5th, but, the lurkers, I want to say they have kind of a limited amount of time in this matchup, because once the Terran has all of these bases, all of his SimCity, and all of their ghosts, they basically have a pretty good army. And it's more so on the Ling Baneling, I think, that actually complicate matters. Case in point, Ghost trying to respond to the Nidus Worm, probably caught in the midst of the Ling Baneling battle, which is not what they're ideal for. They're okay, But losing over half of your ghosts because they got caught in the mixture there as opposed to being up in that main base, that is a huge problem. Ghost still not able to respond appropriately. Oh my god, we're just having a massacre right now. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord. Nidus Worms. Pretty good. Right in that choke as well. That was a disaster for Clem, who manages to hold on to a decent supply, but really needs to get cleaning things up here. It's eventually going to happen. Dark unable to flood, and I think if he could have, if he had somehow at some point in this game gotten to a 3,000, 1,000 bank, and he just flooded during this chaos, I actually think he might have won. Now, as it is, Clem has some time to think things through. He did save some ghosts, and now the snipes are coming down appropriately. Another Nidus Swarm, however. Queen's also providing transfuses, keeping some of these lurkers alive. Dark is not going to let go of this position. It's his last hope to win this game. Clem has got not just those snipes, but also a great concave. Medivacs actually out of juice, but providing enough healing to finally push this back. Dark recognizing it does escape with what he has. That's better than losing it all, but it wasn't very much that he escaped with. And his base was actually killed at some point, and even look at that. Not that it had a lot more mining to do anyway. This base wasn't actually taken, and this base was never taken because he couldn't quite afford a double expand. So Clem, after a brief, scary moment, for sure, his main base has been entirely decimated. He's actually okay. I mean, really important here that he has so many foundational positives, right? Like, his bases were already set up. They already had their defenses as planetaries with at least the building armor upgrade. And then it was a matter of maybe being able to produce again because all of his barracks died. And that's what's keeping Clem from instantly remaxing mostly. But as long as he didn't panic and literally lose all of his army, which was very close to happening. I don't know if it's quite panic or just, you know, understandable, too many things happening at once, but he did lose a lot of army in a bad way. He kept enough of it alive, pushed it back, is now recovering his main base basically elsewhere, rebuilt his barracks and whatnot. Main base still a problem because there's a lot of dead space that you could not be taken account of, and, okay, some point, okay. You know what's funny is that he was actually killing all but one changeling with the Liberator. He was actually responding to the changelings, I think, that went to the main base, and he just missed one. That's all it took. Ugh. Pain. Probably also why he didn't bother checking that particular point, because he thought he had already taken care of all of the scouting that could have gone there. However, it looks like we have a new, simple response. That's the funny thing about losing your main base, I guess, is that, you know, if you just admit that it's lost and move elsewhere, you know, what is the problem? The lurkers get here, and then where do they go? Not down the ramp against Liberators, so easy peasy on the defense, actually. Not too bad. It looks like it's a problem, but it's actually kind of the opposite of a problem. The only vulnerable thing here might be a starport. He does have 3 starports, so not even that, actually. And then the armory, which, hey, if he loses +3 armor, it's not the worst thing. Scans coming down to reveal Dark's position. Dark able to mine just enough to almost remax, but I gotta imagine he's running out of minerals at this point. That would have been an overreach if there were more banelings, but even though there was an almost surround from the lings, there wasn't a whole lot of splash, only 1 lurker contributing, and 3/3 bio probably would have standed its ground. Stood its ground. Words. Off to the bottom right, we got some lurker action, but it's very clear that Dark no longer has anything really going for him. He doesn't have a stronger army, he doesn't have Clem completely out of position, and he does not stop the economy of the Terran either. So, yeah, even though it wasn't a bunch of fireworks here, it is an understandable tap out. Dark now on his last life. All right, bottom left of Dynasty now, up 2-0. He is Clem. In the top right, we do have Dark. Actually, speaking of the chat about the clan tag, we have quite a few foreigners in Korea right now, including one of the best foreigners of all time, Neeb. Neeb went back to school years ago, I think, and then like completely went back to school last year, I want to say. Had his last performance at TvZ, which was still pretty good for someone who had kind of already retired. But he studied programming or something. You know, some, like, actual job, right? That's going to pay well and have some security in the future. Who needs that when you have esports? Anyway, but he's apparently spending months in Korea because we even considered asking him to participate in the safe house, actually. And he even responded saying that, oh, if I had a, you know, stable PC here, I would have. But it seems like he would have had to have gone to like a PC cafe, and that's a little uncomfortable, and he didn't bring his peripherals and stuff. And anyway, so he was there a couple of months ago, and then I think they recently took a picture going to like a bar or something like that, and he was still there, like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it's him, Trigger, Estrella, Future, maybe? And then definitely some other people who, I know a lot of people saw it and they even thought that there was some confirmation that there'd be GSL participation, but no, they just went because Korea is actually really cool. It's still probably a good training ground for StarCraft 2 as well, I meant. But it's I don't know, a lot of the reason, and I think this has to be communicated, I think a lot of the reason that we've had so many people go to Korea over the last, let's say, more like 4 or 5 years, obviously COVID interrupted some things, has probably been more because people like Korea than the, Rocky-like training montage where they're just like grinding the Korean ladder 14 hours a day. And not so much. Thank you, Falling Ninja, for the tier 1 sub. Not to say they aren't practicing, it's just the moving locales used to be a sign that you were really prepping back in like 2012. You're going to contact the team house, you were going to train with them like the Koreans did, and it was all awesome. You had someone making your food for you and cleaning for you and stuff like that. Not anymore. We do have the odd map here at play, so we should talk about that. Clem going for the base at the gold. Terran does kind of get the favor here since they have nothing but range units, and all other races, not so much. I have spent significant time in Korea. Why? Because I like Korea. It's a really awesome place. And especially, I think, for, Americans and Canadians, like a lot of places in the world don't mimic a city. So I'm not saying that Europeans also wouldn't enjoy the change up, but it really feels particularly different for the countries that have too much space for their own good and take advantage of that space far too much. We're talking highways aplenty and planned suburbs, absolutely zero interesting things going on. And then you go to Korea, Seoul, this huge city that's also extremely safe. And it feels like an entirely different world. Anywho, apparently that creep tumor is not going to happen. F you, creep tumor. Reaper killed it, sacrificed its life for it, then the Hellions got it as well. And that is kind of comical, because you're just like, feels bad, man. But this is literally the starting creep tumor, guys. This is actually supposed to have already gone into the second creep tumor alongside a second new creep tumor. And maybe even already making its way to its third iteration, right? Having bridged the gap between the natural and the third, the longer that it can't bridge the gap, the more the Hellions can stop drones from either mining or being produced at the third base because the queens can't protect it. It's actually very annoying that these initial creep tumors, the ones that cost 25 energy, are being killed before they even get started. It's always great to capture an active creep tumor, but it's especially good to catch it when it's just initially planted. I would actually be feeling on top of the world right now. I'd be like, I already won, and then I'd lose because I can't macro. But Clem can macro, and although he has, once again, it looks like gone for a 1-1-1 off of 2 bases, he is off going into 3CC, double engineering bay, all the good stuff that's given him the wins thus far. Couple of drones still going down to the Hellion harassment off of that left side. There's a notable lack of creep tumor to even give it a little bit of advance notice, like around here. Banshee also getting into that natural. Spore Crawler was actually placed very obviously in an anti-liberator zone. So it's just a little bit of a play that the Terran and Zerg have to figure out during a game of StarCraft 2. You get a starport off of 2 or even 3CC, whichever one. One hits sooner than the other. Is it Liberator? Is it Banshee? Not often confirmed. Maybe you can get the eye in the starport or just kind of guess they're going for a 1-1-1, but you can't confirm. And then Spore Crawler is a Spore Crawler. As long as you have it, you're not going to instantly die. But to have it in anti-Liberator versus anti-Banshee means that, if it's the wrong one, suddenly you do lose 4 drones. And that's what's happened so far. Dark continuing just to keep his head down and move on, though. He's going for that 4th base once again at this gold. Now, he's done this... Actually, this might have been a 3rd. No, that doesn't make any sense. No, it must have been a 4th, yeah. He's done this before, and it was extremely punished. I'm talking, like, comical, like, I don't know about taking that base. But maybe it'll be a bit better on the defense this time around. Because, I mean, this... It's not that... I remember talking about this the last time I saw it. I don't think it's necessarily a shorter path for the Terran to get from here to here compared to here, wherever they end up stopping. But it's definitely more of a direct path. I don't know the time difference, but it's a more direct path that also kind of covers some of the common attack angles. Like, obviously, it won't cover this if they decide to run by here, so that's always a problem, but Banshees are at home. But then you kind of, like, catch if they're running through here. Getting a surround set up from the Zerg player is even a little more of an extra S-bend there. And then, yeah, the tanks, when they're on this location, they do have this nice little ledge, or they can be back here even for the retreat. I don't know, it just seems like a lot of things to consider for the Zerg player to actually defend this base. Oh, excuse me. And not that, you know, defending the base if it was on the other side is that much easier, because all the same problems probably still occur. But it's still, I mean, it's a difference of, at the very least, this tank covering almost the hatchery. That is extremely close to the hatchery, which obviously covers more of the Marines' retreats. They can get more on the front line and even kind of take advantage of this ramp, which, you know, maybe that doesn't exist if the hatchery's on the other side. I don't know. It seems to be what Zergs do, though, and they just got to figure out how to defend against it. It is tough, but not impossible. Dark up to 73 drones here, if he can save this 4th base. If he can't, he already has another 5th, I guess, so he can replace, but not gold, obviously. Army supply currently very much favoring Clem, by the way. This is, is this something that Dark could actually defend? You know, the worst thing in the world probably wouldn't be evacuating. The worst thing in the world would be trying to take the engagement and then not winning said engagement, and then I think you just lose. I think it's a domino effect from there. But evacuating? Maybe Dark is ready to evacuate, but only when he absolutely has to. And currently his Queen Ling Hydra defense is at least keeping the hatchery alive. Even though Clem has been able to continue rallying forward here without any repercussions, no run-by attempted. He's going to be able to reinforce once again. He's waiting for the packs of units so that he has some anti-run-by defense, and that means that occasionally he's missing 20 supply on the front, where Dark has the defender's advantage, but there really is no question here. Like, Clem can take this almost surgically. Now, this actually ends up being a little funny. You know, Dark takes the fight once he realizes that Clem had not pushed his army up to the front. So the tank does get taken down, the army gets taken down, the medevacs get taken down, and what is with the medevac count? I feel like there should have been way more than just 5? Almost 7? A 9.5? Maybe I'm wrong. 2 Banshees were made first, after all. But still, the lack of medevacs is a bit of a concern. But yeah, I was going to say, Clem could kind of take that surgically, kind of size up how that would go. But funnily enough, you know, he reinforces, but not far enough. All the reinforcements were back here. Not a part of the fight. Oh, that friendly fire would have mined. Oh, the second friendly fire. Come on. Fortunately for the Terran, it did also kill some Zerg, but it also contributed heavily to the Marine kill. So, thanks, Widowmine. But seriously, like, if his army had been pushed farther up to respond to the break attempt, I actually feel like Clem would have done wonderfully there. So much of his army was away from the first fight. Now it's too little. Now it is going to be overwhelmed. Dark, waiting for his moment, finds it. And then kind of just does cleanup duty afterward. He is being harassed on the right side. The Banshees no longer just anti-run by. Do try and find something to do. Fortunately, despite their surprise, the Queens were able to spawn quicker. Because this had already been taken care of. Good on Dark to actually reposition his Queens, not just lazily leave them somewhere. So that hatchery doesn't get down into maybe the red. I'm not sure it ever gets killed by 2 Banshees, but maybe it gets into the red. Still going to continue attacking to this line, which I think just makes sense. Again, it does cover A lot of the run by, especially the planetary's up, that's kind of covering this run by. And then, yeah, these are some chokes you can use defensively, but then pushing through offensively, obviously, Dark has the advantage there. So it just makes sense to push from the north or the south. Through the middle is the real question mark. Like, if you get past the choke, great. If you don't, it's hard to get past choke. This is going to be a successful runaway for Clem. Dark actually starting to get some moves on the map, though. Looking a lot better after just defending. 75 drones, 5 bases. That gold actually never stopped mining. Even got the Rich Vespian Geyser as well up. Obviously a benefit of taking the hatchery there. This was found before it was a planetary. Dark's timing, excellent. 2-2, no adrenal glands. Hive is completed. A lot of other Zerg players will just dive towards adrenal glands. 100%. But Dark, obviously putting a lot of his resources into furthered upgrades for Lurkers and Hydras, and then upgrades for Lurkers. Like, this is his goal first and foremost. And then maybe last game, as I said, it was just a matter of not having enough resources when you do look back at your base. He did not get adrenal glands. Time around does. I think that will obviously help. One Banshee still alive and kicking, helping out. Might be better off trying to be an advanced scout. Sensor Tower can only cover so much. Large Zerg army suddenly appearing on Clem's front door. Quick response from him despite the ping. But does he have enough? These are only reinforcements. His army was entirely on the front, trying to push down that right side as well as protect that would-be planetary. Orbital gets taken down, so at the very least, a chunk of change. SCV is also going to get killed. And this is not too bad. Yeah, take it as almost a run-by. Retreat with the expensive, slow-building army. Slower-moving army as well. And call it a W. 11 SCVs, command center killed, and a big distraction, keeping Clem off of Dark side of the map. Almost open an opportunity, but that planetary did finish, and Bio was left there. Good on Clem to keep that in mind. Once again, medevac numbers, actually completely fine. 12 medevacs. It's just a matter of having enough time to heal everything back up. And the medevac's also derping a little bit, apparently. So that's currently the issue. I'm afraid of one parasitic bomb or fungal, by the way. Yeah. And this is something that Dark absolutely does do, I think, more reliably than some other Zergs. Get those spellcasters, at the very least infestors. Not this time. Not this time. Medevacs will live, but now they're in a really weird spot. More reinforcements. Looks like they'll hold the high ground, but the natural has been wrecked. Fourth rather, planetary. Not gonna hold. Nope, never mind. Had a chance against Pure Ling, but those Banelings rolling on in there. Absolutely take it out. And Clem is now on the ropes. He has lost the entire upper side of his base. Now he's coming in here with a bit of a concave, allowed to get down the ramp to a certain extent. But the army, despite so many medevacs, still not all that healed up. I mean, yeah, the lurker spawns are just one-shotting so many of these units, and there's not that many lurkers left. In fact, only one. Scan runs out. Gonna need another one. I don't think he's paying attention because there's just too much going on. This time around, Dark having those reinforcements coming in to add more chaos. The little supply block is a bit awkward at 15 or 14 minutes, but it looks like this time around, Dark not gonna let the momentum go. Because again, last game, it was kind of close. Those Nidus lurkers in the main caused so many distractions that if Dark had been able to reinforce with mass cracklings like he did here, I think that would have been very different. But he does it on his last life, holds the line, and we continue on to game 4. In the top left of site Delta, we've got Clem. And in the bottom right, we have Dark. Dark taking care of that, I think, really, really scary position with that base. And I want to say it was less Dark doing well, although his patience did pay off. And more on Clem not having so many of his reinforcements really a part of the battle. Dark was able to choose a moment in which he took on 20% of Clem's army, and then 50% of it, and then 30, and then 20. Really dissecting it. That made it easier to clean up. And that was great for Dark because of the patience. It was great for him to, you know, take that chance, I guess, because there's always a chance that you think there's not enough army. And as a Zerg player, you don't have a scan. You can't just be like, oh, look, a scan. That's another 200 supply in the back there. So you sometimes do get punished for a move like that. You jump on what looks like 20% of the army, and then 80% of the army was actually waiting for that, and they respond quickly, and you just made a mistake going off of creep. Wasn't last game. Dark was able to clean things up before Clem could respond. So I really feel like Clem did lose a strong position there, but that's not when he really started to lose. He was still in a good position overall. It was Dark able to successfully break on through with some of the help of lurkers, but that was just a nice attack point angle. Taking advantage of the bigger map as we continue to expand, pulling Clem left and right. And then actually being able to reinforce and use that momentum to end the game. Dark is still on the ropes, however, and Clem is going to change things up a lot this time around by going for a forward 2-Rex. So he had a phase where he did this all the time. He's definitely practiced with it, but as far as compared to Byun, who does it 70% of the time now as opposed to 100, but still. Maybe it's not as practice. We know that Clem's pretty good with the Reaper micro. And he even had some success last game with the Reaper. Even though it died, there was actually a lot in that last game that was going Clem's way. The early game seemed to go well for him, and the mid game seemed to have that powerful position, but couldn't carry it through. Now hoping to push maybe the early game a little more. Might have also, wanted to remind Dark to not try and get away with a gasless opener, because Dark sometimes throws that in. He will be a little bit of a greedy boy. Change things up. Not this time around. He's got his very, very normal opening. I think most importantly, he was able to sneak that drone out prior to the Reaper showing up and then actually start the hatchery as well. This gets a lot more awkward if the drone dies, and then it's basically impossible to send a second drone because the Reaper's going to be on top of that. Now, it's great that you got the hatchery down, but then saving it can be another issue, especially when the Terran player adds more than 3 Reapers. 3 Reapers, usually you can respond quick enough with the Queens already moving their slow butts off of creep. But we see here that Dark didn't even try. Dark actually, from the get-go apparently, deciding I can't save that, let it go, send my slow, eventually fastlings across the map, and try and do significant damage. And you know what? That has worked! And perhaps this is a much-needed reminder for Clem to be wary of a strategy like this when you do 2-Racks. Now, to be fair, this was kind of fast speed, I guess. Like, it's... when did it finish? Like, 325 or something like that? That's not the fastest. But considering how many Zerg players actually have tried to delay the speed, that might have been something that Clem just kind of predicted. Like, oh, slow ling's not a problem. I can deal with that eventually. And then they turn into speed kind of as fast as possible in a normal game. But, regardless, this is, I think, this is a nice game to remind you to just be like, and not do that again in a more important game. Because all he had to do was consider, why am I not being responded to about this hatchery, right? I need to go check to make sure I'm not being killed. And one Reaper going back and seeing those lings move would have changed a lot. Would have made it so that Dark probably saved the hatchery because the Reapers go respond to this. But then, he made a decent amount of lings that weren't drones, that would have had no more use if they hadn't broken through the natural. But that was a bit of a gamble from Dark, and it worked out. So we're into game 5. In the bottom of Amphion, we have Clem. The top, it is Dark. Dark likes to ask the questions, not answer them. Dark's just a boss. I feel like he really has a force of will that a lot of the top, like seriously, the top 6 in the world have. There's a certain point in which the best players in the world get that aura where even if they're on the ropes, you just know in your heart, even if you're not the biggest fanboy, that they're probably going to be okay. And it doesn't last forever, because if it did, then you have one person winning everything all the time, which is Cyril, close to it. But Cyril is a great example of that. Someone who, even when he's down 0-2, you're like, well, I don't know. You still win. he has that power and that aura in a way that is more methodical and mechanical, and just, you know, that the macro is going to eventually click and he's going to overwhelm. Dark is the opposite. As a Zerg player, he could be down 0-2 as he was in this series, but you have a feeling that he'll bring it back because he's going to bring out the clobbering fist. He's going to turn into the Thing, and he's going to clobber the opposing player, even when it doesn't seem like it's like, you know, going to work out. Even when you're like, Zerg all-ins aren't that great. Oh, Reapers really are a great opening because they can be defensive as well. Like, that last game does not happen very often at all. But then there's that kind of dark force of will thing. Obviously, he's got all the mechanics and the experience and just generally a great player. But to have those moments against another top-tier player like Clem, you're kind of getting to that X factor you talk about with the best players in the world. And now it all comes down to this. Clem loses a game that was pretty solid for him, that game 3. Then loses a game that is, again, just like a... You just smack your head at that one. You're just like, wow, okay. That was stupid. All right, moving on. Now, let's see if he can bring back what he was doing in the first 2 games, or if Dark will continue rolling with this momentum, which he is pretty freaking good at. Not going to do anything super cheesy, of course, as it just is so... Really, the 2 base all-ins are very unlikely to work, let's be honest, for the Zergs out there. But 3 base attacks, low drone counts when you don't expect it, even that 3 base Ling Roach Ravager all-in, those are all things that Dark would do, where a lot of other Zergs would not. So you gotta be on point. So I'm going for a more typical opener, 1 Rax expand into the 3cc? No, it's gonna be Starport. I was going to say, it's kind of lighter on the gas, but I might just go in for the Liberator instead of the Banshees. The 3rd base will finally come down. That Reaper did delay it by quite a bit. And now it's over. It's got to wait for the Hellions to really add anything else. Dark being extra careful with his creep spread. Putting it all the way back. That's fine, though. It's better than losing it. This creep tumor is also fine. So Ilva's going to get in here. It's going to see that the starport is just finishing. It's going to see that this was going to be Tech Lab. But I'm actually not super... Well... I was going to say, I wasn't super convinced that it would have been Banshee and Cloak. The amount of minerals and gas that was had by Clem. But it could have been like 1 safety Banshee. Could have eventually been Cloak. Either way, the barracks was clearly lifted and then clearly went back to take that tech lab again, which is something that the Overlord was able to see, too. So, there is a starport. I said that Dark saw it, and I was wrong. He actually moves away before seeing it. But I think the barracks tech lab, not, researching, actually was a reveal enough. And it wasn't just on it the entire time. He saw it lift. That would clearly be for a starport. Yeah, he knows the starport's around. Anyway, even though you know a starport's around, actually defending against all the harassment is proven to be impossible. Clem's gotten 1 or 2 drones with everything that he's done. Not terrible, but it's still happened. This time around, it's going to be that Liberator. And then, are there Spore Crawlers? A little late. He was distracted, probably at a time where he would have been building the Spore Crawlers because of the Hellions. And that means that there's 2 drones and about half the lost mining mineral line. So it is certainly something. And again, Clem, very good with the Liberator. He did choose in the second game to bring it back home and just defend. I'm not sure you have to do that on this map. I mean, obviously, you're going to push out to take the 3rd CC on every map. But I don't know. It felt more powerful on that triangle 3rd compared to the horizontal 3rd. I think I'm just making it up, though. Liberator back at home defending this, probably. Still a good idea, and that might be exactly what Clem's going to do. Spore Crawlers are done. They're now in anti-Liberator positions. Queens are more on guard. They Spore Crawlers. There's one. And the Hellions have also, they're losing their power to distract. In fact, it's more and more likely that they will be caught out of position or just, not being controlled. and 20lings will suddenly kill them. So there is that time in every StarCraft 2 game where you're kind of just realizing it's best to keep them in a safe position as opposed to really trying to milk all the damage possible from them. And this might be hitting around that time. Clem doesn't want to entirely evacuate with Hellions. Clearly, they're the first thing that tells him that there are suddenly 50 lings on the way. And getting a couple more creep tumors. There you go. Okay, great. But don't keep them on the front line. Don't keep them under the creep tumors. And maybe eventually use them as part of the push. Double engineer bays are done. Armory could be started soon. Do we have an SCV being trapped? We do. We put it on patrol so it doesn't pop up on the idle SCVs. He could also kill it. But apparently won't do that. He actually should kill it. He's supply blocked. No, these 3 supply depots are on the way. First move out is prepared. 7 minutes, 2 tanks. Trying to go down the middle as much as you can on Amphion. You got these rocks and the minerals and whatnot. Everything's blocking everything. Liberator Scout to top right. That could harass actually from this angle, which would probably be pretty good. Creep tumor's not over there after all. At the very least, and I'm mining. Yeah, I was gonna say there are mineral blocking. I would love to see an SCV brought though. That'd actually be really fun. 2 SCVs. You need at least 2 spaces for the Marines to run through. I think that'd be great. Liberator gonna cover the tanks to a certain extent. Not necessarily all that helpful because again, nothing can pass the Marines. Liberator might want to go a little bit farther forward, being very, very specific here. Because this is going to last a very long time, and getting everything set up as good as it can get from the get-go is the best way to do it. But, Liberator's gonna chill. Alright, fine. So this is gonna be harassment. You know, it's not something you can't take seriously, you shouldn't take seriously, but it's... The tanks can't reach over. So... There's always that, you could maybe defend with all these queens for an extended period of time. But eventually, things could go sideways. So Dark tries to go for a run by. Kind of successful. 11 SCVs do go down. Maybe some more reinforcements as well. But at the end of the day, still has this army that did eventually kill the hatchery. So even though those queens tried their best to buy a lot of time and the run by hoped to bring back more army, Clem's defense on the run by seemed pretty good. SCVs died, but overall able to stem the blood flow. Have Dark have to retreat from that, and Dark just loses a base. Now, he had his 5th in the corner, but only on 4 bases. Macro Hatchery is done. I don't like its positioning, but I guess it doesn't matter. We got the left side being taken now as well, as the minerals have been mined, and Clem, understandably so, just going to move on to this next base. This is why the corner base is like, eh. This is actually really difficult for the Zerg to go respond to. Either they're coming from one angle here, which is so easy for the Terran to take on, or they set up some type of mega surround that takes 1 billion years to reach each other. That's, not gonna happen. So that corner base, it is instantly gonna fall if this one goes down. Clem, not looking to overextend, actually still has the majority of his army now back at home. His reinforcements have become his main army. It's a really, really, really unfortunate thing for the Zerg player when that happens. Because, in the ideal situation, you do choose your time correctly, as Dark has done in a previous game. And you say, you have not reinforced. You have kept your army back at home. This is the time that I have 100% and you have 50%. Missing that opportunity means that now you have 100% of the Terran army redirecting aggression to another base that you actually very much need at this point, because you've already given up 2. Dark not even maxed out. 30 armor supply difference. Clem actually found a little surprised. Dark went for the ye old Zerg gamble. Hope that the Banelings connect when the Terran isn't expecting them. Get off of that creep. Take the first engagement. Extremely dangerous to do, because if you do not take care of the Terran army, you don't have Banelings anymore, baby. And you need Banelings. These Marines are going to have a fun time jumping on top of the Hydras, despite the Hydras also having some upgrades to their name. And actually a decent number of them. I think this might be a hold. This is obviously a very expensive hold. So much army of Dark went down after losing 2 bases and really not having a lot of consistent mining in this game. Clem did overextend a little bit there. The Hydras ended up taking down some of the army. 2-2 actually had... Whoa, 2-2 is actually way far behind for Clem. Holy shit, that actually might be the reason he didn't win right there. Yeah, 2-2 was done for Dark, but not for Clem. That would make the number of Hydras accumulated there in a what's the word? A sustained battle. No splash involved anymore. That would make that very good. Very, very good. I think if 2-2 was done for Clem as well in that fight when the Banelings were gone and it was pretty much just Hydra bio, I think the Marines would have won with 2-2. Well, that's going to keep Dark alive, and actually, this has officially become an overextension. Clem even losing another bit of his drop, clearly being tracked at this point as well. Dark has managed to plant back his 5th or whatever it was off to the right. It's still going to be difficult for Dark to respond left, right, as long as he is on the defensive. This is something that Clem is going to take advantage of. But as soon as Dark is able to get stabilized, which he's actually even doing better than Clem currently, then we're going to have run buys. Then we're going to have a little bit more of a counter-attack possibility, and then Clem is going to be the one having to respond left, right. I guess a little less so because he never took the left, but still, he's going to have to respond to a lot of pressure from a Zerg player who was really on the ropes there. But by being on the ropes while simultaneously taking 2 hatcheries and saving his drones, has managed to rebound in a way that Clem's slower upgrades, just simply a mistake, and what looked to be a slower 4th base, because that certainly wasn't the fastest one, the rebound is so much better for Dark here. Things are not clearly going to end one way or the other, but again, considering how dangerously close Dark was to dying, it's a better position for Dark than I thought it'd be in. Having to replace those Hydras when they do end up having to go mono a mono is usually so expensive. It really hits that remax. But despite losing his Banelings, he only lost 4 Hydras there. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Well, Clem, how about you don't forget 2-2 next time, am I right? I'm actually not sure it would have been done if he had started it ASAP, but I noted when the armory was supposed to be built and the 2-2 would have started immediately in the best case scenario, and that simply had to have been late. So that means also that +3 Carapace for Dark is going to finish at a decent time. You still are more wary of a Terran 3-3 than you are of a Zerg 3. I guess it would be what it is, but it is a better situation for Zergs than usual, where we know that they are very much more often found way behind in those 3-3 upgrades. And not only is it going to be a 3 Carapace upgrade for Dark, but also successfully getting to the Lurkers. I mean, this is kind of what Dark does in that mid to late game, right? He defends. If he sees an opportunity to counterattack or do a run by, yes, of course he takes it. But then it's about that Lurker power punch, and it really is kind of like a timing. I mean, there's a little bit more you can do with Lurkers than just make 12 and try an attack and win with that attack. But, like I was saying in that game 2, whatever it was, when there's a certain number of ghosts and there's a certain amount of planetaries and Sim City, it is very difficult to make Lurkers at all cost efficient because ghosts respond to them so efficiently. So then you're really relying more so on the distraction tactics, having to, scan and concave and snipe while also trying to defend that right side and also worry about the middle and then worry about what the Zerg player is getting behind those Lurkers if they've accrued quite a bank. That's when the Terran still feels the heat. But if you're just relying completely on a Lurker attack against someone who has ghosts, mono a mono, head to head, probably don't do that. You can do it on the ladder because we all suck at using ghosts, but you can't do it against Clem, who does not suck at using ghosts. But there's the plan once again. 11 Lurkers, upgrades about to finish, Nidus Worm is here, and an Overlord is ready. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him! Oh, he's waiting. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's coming. That ghost is like, should I snipe it? Nah, it's fine. Is it fine? So the problem is kind of like a Protoss problem, honestly, where you might know that this is very much the plan here, but you can't not have your army on the front lines in case they just go for a direct attack. But then you can't also just you can't have it on the front line. You can't not have it on the front line. And you can't have it all on the front line because they could get the nice run up. That's what I was trying to say. Yep. And you might, just use your reinforcements to deal with the Nidus Worm. Not if you're maxed out. I mean by the Protoss problem. Sometimes Protoss get maxed out and they can't warp in defensively. But while the Ghosts try and respond to the Nidus Swarm all by their lonesome... Oh my god, that is so many Overlords. I entirely missed that. That Nidus Swarm was a fake! I got so bamboozled, and I have God vision. Oh my god. Okay, so that was beautiful. That was awesome. Planetary goes down. Rest of the army retreats. Clem responding, but not quick enough. Can't chase at all. Now has lurkers in the main base. Ghosts, however, were there. So as cool as that was... Ghosts. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? That explains why he was telegraphing a Nidus so hard. It kind of does. But then again, even though that was a cinematic surprise, that was all the superheroes coming out of the teleports and whatever in the Avengers. It didn't actually. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst at all. It was actually still very good because that also distracted that planetary defense, killed some structure, and then now it's a consistent worry. But that didn't end the game, which I think it could have if Ghosts were not in position. That is a very weak army that was also not very anti-Ling anyway, and now with the Ling drops being the threat, you've kind of changed the dynamic. Now Ghosts don't really want to respond to that. They can, as long as they're combined together. But you want those Ghosts wary for the Lurkers that are maybe still being added. And as we can see here, they absolutely are. Dark still finding value again in that distraction, having to add the complicating factor of this burrow into the units here, alongside Cracklings, getting over to Nook and Cranny. That's what really causes the damage. As soon as those Lurkers can be nicely, calmly sized up and sniped, no big deal. But it's the Lings and the Banelings crashing on through that's causing all of these problems. Look at all of the blue coming on in here, still in the main, going to the natural. Third base under attack as well. And Dark is trying to win this by sheer momentum. But it isn't working, guys. It is not working, and this is actually turned from something that looked really hype. All that blue was coming down. It looked like some cinematic from the video game, the campaign. No. Look at the supply. 190 supply to 150. That's run of Lings across the map suddenly turned into a trickle. Trickling into the awaiting arms of an almost maxed out Terran army. And Dark was not... He didn't have enough larva to use up a bank. That was fine, but the larva wasn't there, and the overlords weren't there. He was supply blocked at 150 and had to spend 600 minerals rebuilding those the overlords. You know, they're dying trying to go for the distraction. Now, that was a pretty significant gap of supply that was quite worrying, but Dark finally able to use the rest of his bank, is at least remaxed. Able to collect a couple of equally expensive units right there. I believe a couple of tanks went down for a couple of lurkers. But this has depleted Dark's bank. And even though Dark did take the opportunity to expand yet again to the gold minerals as well as to the corner's not mining. Initial 4 or 5 bases running out of mining. That is a problem now. Now, Clem is only on his original 5 bases as well, so he's going to have to worry about his amount of mineral patches, but I think you check the resources lost, you can see an 11,000 resource difference. That is understandable for the matchup, but probably before all those units started to really go into that sunk cost fallacy, maybe it would have been like an 8,000 resource difference. 11,000 is pretty big, and it's staying pretty consistent as well. Lings trying into the natural while they can. Into the main base they go as well. I mean, this is... Even if they don't kill anything, again, distraction is huge. Dark gets more time to rebuild that economy, to transfer his drones, to get to maybe some spellcasters as well, which could help, obviously, against the ghosts. A couple of burrowed infestors added into some of these engagements, and things go very, very differently. Both players maxed out. Both players on an almost equal bank as well. Equal upgrades across the board. 3-3, 3-3-3. Adrenal Glands also had finish up. We almost have everything that we need for a late game TvZ, except Clem has not yet afforded his building upgrades, which I do think is very much worth it. Speaking of which, Planetary is going to go down. With or without building upgrades, to be fair. But it is going to go down. SCVs appropriately pulled away. You're going to lose 500 plus minerals and gas, whatever it is, but you can at least save 500 minerals of SCVs. And they are now all types of bunched up. But the Banelings don't go over to them. Oh, no lift in the orbital as well. Suddenly those Banelings collecting a 2-for-1 deal. You know, that is actually a lot better than what it was looking like, which is that they looked like they were going to waste their lives chasing after SCVs that were appropriately pulled away. Suddenly 20 absolutely useless banelings kill another orbital. Now, Clem had a couple extra, as you would expect in late game TvZ, so we can't... Oh, that was a good parasitic bomb. So we can't replace that, but it is getting more and more worrisome. Doesn't really want to be replacing them with orbitals either. He wants to replace them with planetaries. That's an issue. Big old Overlord drop. Number 2, guys. If it doesn't work the first time, just do it again. This time around, no unnecessary Nidus Worm, just straight up the gullet. Once again, too few reinforcements helping against purely Nidus Worm. They don't help against the Overlord drop. Yeah. Not gonna happen. Clem, once again, forced to respond far to the left, leaving the right side a little bit open. Tanks not great at defending pure Ling run-bys. Not good at all. This time around, the SCV is also going down as well. Scan in the middle because he figures, he's feeling that there might be a third attack. And that was actually a good feeling because that kind of could have been. But Clem... not only not being attacked, also making sure to keep an army around. Really nicely done there. Gets 2 Vipers, only loses 1 Liberator. That's the type of patience you need to display, because it's almost inevitable that a Zerg player will get some type of 2-pronged attack with Nidus Worms and Overlord drops. It's just, like, how do you stop that completely in 100%? Maybe you can't, but you can stop it from getting really, really, really bad. And that is panicking, having your army all over the place, unsieging units, not protecting the siege units, whatever it is. And Clem, he's had both. He's messed up a couple times, understandably, and he's done really well a couple of times. Dark just continues to do the same thing over and over and over again, which eventually he will exhaust all minerals and gas on the field. Eventually, the ultimate problem of Zerg comes to its head, which is that there's not an infinite number of bases on maps. So it becomes the old, resource loss game. Can you win the game with the resources you have, or not? 13,000 resource loss at this point, by the way. That's a lot of Zerg army. This looks like a lot of Zerg army, but it's a lot of Overseers, and that was a pretty well damn set up defense. 3 tanks, Liberator, missile turret, bio. Not gonna happen there. Not gonna happen easily, anyway. Clem... 2 sensor towers, helping him with a little more advanced notice as well. See some of these run-bys, responds, I think, more so preemptively. He just figured that run-by was on its way, because that is still an orbital after all. Nidus Worm, in a place where even I would not have noticed it. Oh, no. Oh, geez. Okay, big attack at the main. That is finally going to get the kill, so it looks like the tanks were killed. The Liberator stands strong, but there was just too much there. Dark does lose some army in return for that kill, but now he's deleted that major obstacle, that planetary fortress. Baneling's very limited right now. Ghost on the front line, not where they usually want to be, but they're thinking they can take this on. Snipes actually do come down, despite the Hydra's attempt to cancel them, I gotta assume. I mean, you can't have really seen which snipe was going down. The Medevac's recovering them very well, actually. And that means there's a bit of a trade. But Clem has lost a lot of economy. He's lost his 3rd CC. He has not been mining off of his 5th, his 6th, I don't know, numbers here, guys. But that also stopped mining. And what was kind of a consistent economy now is suddenly almost 0 economy. Dark has not expanded again. I think this one got killed. So for all intents and purposes, he has not expanded again since he took those corner bases. But I think he has maybe... Oh no, he hasn't actually improved the resource loss trade. He's using the last of his bank is what he is to finally get something nearly game ending, but not quite. The 16,000 resource difference. You gotta imagine he's running out of steam. But the main issue, of course, is that Clem is also not running out of steam. Clem has taken a couple of too many punches to the chin. Starting to look a little woozy. Holding an evenish army supply. Obviously down in workers, but what are you going to do? Losing some expensive units up here to the lurkers, which Dark has gone back into, realizing that there is an opportunity. The ghost numbers have dwindled a little bit. Overall, 15 have died in this game. That's not... Considering how much has gone on in this game, I would not have been surprised to see more. But anyway, they're also distracted. There's just so many things happening, and now every single unit of Clem needs to be in the appropriate place. You don't have so much supply now that you can kind of cover it with Splash and SimCity. You need to have the right units in the right place at the right time, and that is getting increasingly more difficult. Clem able to respond to this attack, save his orbital as well. Also finally clearing up the lurkers in the main base. 28 lurkers have died in this game, 4 remain here, 1 more being added on. Dark is a little bit more of an economy, as you can see here with this number, but yeah, okay, I was gonna say, still struggling to actually end the game. Finally tears Clem apart enough that he will win Game 5 and successfully get a reverse sweep here from a 2-0 to a 3-2. Nicely done here. Dark, never to be underestimated. Clem, in my eyes, was clearly playing a different type of Terran today. For whatever reason, he was trying to do it differently. That might have impacted the overall results. But then if Clem's doing something different, you got to imagine Dark's also doing a little bit different as well. It's a little less visible, especially when you have a Terran commentator, not a Zerg commentator. But it also just has to do with races, as far as that build order being as structured as it is for the Terran compared to the Zerg. But probably Dark also looking to experiment, looking to prep for particularly the EWC. Not to discredit any of these online tournaments, because they're very important to the ecosystem, but this is a drop in the water, right? This is something that you just don't think about because all eyes are on the Esports World Cup happening in a couple of weeks, and these two are, I'm not gonna say favorites to win it, but they are very capable of winning it. And there you have it. Dark with a 3-2 wins KSL. So he wins the Korean tournament against the European. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you later for more StarCraft.